Hello, and welcome to this session on cash flow and budgeting. I'm Adrian Ashton, and this is one of a series of short video tutorials on helping you better manage the money in your business as you develop it and take it forward. Now, cash flow and budgeting, again, may seem a bit of a dry subject. Creating a budget, why don't we just simply get out there and do it? Budgeting is really important because coupled with how we manage the cash in our business, it means that it doesn't come to a grinding halt. Because if any business runs out of cash, it's game over straight away. So cash flow and budgeting are really important components in making sure that doesn't happen, in making sure you can keep trading and keep your business moving forward. What we'll be covering in this short video session as you're watching it today or this evening is actually making a bit more of a case of an argument as to why it's worth spending time getting out the calculators, doing some sums, gazing into crystal balls and thinking about why should we try and predict the future in terms of how the money's going to come in and out of my business. Why don't we simply get out there and try it? Better to just give it a go, see what happens and learn from that, surely. Okay, and there's a benefit to that, but we'll look at some of the reasons why it can be actually useful to take a more formal approach. We'll also cover how you actually make up the numbers. So for some of you who've had experience of trading before, this is straightforward, you know what you're doing. For others of you who are watching this, you're thinking, well, I don't know. I've never done anything like this before. What number do I make up? How do I know it's the right number? So we'll look at some of the ways that you can approach that. We'll also talk not just about how you create a budget, but then how you actually make it meaningful and useful, how you get it to work for you and help you stay in more control of your business and your life. And then finally, in terms of the idea of the cash flow and how the money flows in and out and around the business, how to make sure the money keeps flowing, how to help keep you solvent. And solvent means you're able to pay the bills. You're not kind of in a kind of a dire situation. You're becoming bankrupt. So that's what we're covering. So firstly, though, what's the point of spending time creating a budget and a cash flow and a forecast when you could spend that time actually just going out there, talking to customers, making sales, building relationships with suppliers, actually getting on with it? Well, there's a few reasons why I would suggest it's worth thinking about creating budgets. One is so you can make sure you've got the confidence that whenever a bill comes in to your business, you know you can pay it. Okay, it's a really awful position to be in when you have bills landing on the doormat or coming in on email and you're not sure how you're going to pay them. It creates panic. And there's enough panic at the moment in our lives already. So let's see if we can reduce some of that. That's surely a good thing, right? Creating a budget, managing a cash flow is also important in helping us better make decisions in the business. So for example, you may be thinking, you know what, as part of my business, I want to buy a helicopter because helicopters are cool. And I'll be a promotional thing of whatever it is you want to use a helicopter for in your business. The question is, when is the best time for you to buy that helicopter? How do you know buying that helicopter will not accidentally suck up all the money that you really needed next month to pay for the other bills that were about to land? Okay, help us avoid making mistakes. And in that spirit of being able to avoid making accidental mishaps, it means that if there is going to be a problem in how your business runs, you can spot it sooner. It gives you more time to fix it. There isn't that sudden panic. You go, oh, there could be a problem, but it's 2 weeks off, it's 3 months off. That gives you plenty of time to calmly and coolly talk to some other people, research some options, and work out what's best for you on your terms as part of this. Okay, so hopefully that's kind of given you a bit of reassurance as to why this session is worth sticking with and why it's worth spending a bit of time afterwards and around it, creating your budget and cash flow. But to create a budget, we need numbers. We need some idea of what the costs are going to be in our business and what our sales might be against those and when they might happen. And for some of you who are watching this, that's easy. Because for some of you, you're coming to this as a refresher, learning course as a top up. And so you've got experience before. You know what's happened before. You've got evidence of receipts, you've got bank statements, you know what the numbers are. For everyone else, well, don't panic. There are some hopefully logical and plausible ways that might work for you. If you're starting out, you will have been talking with landlords, market managers, talking with suppliers, looking at other businesses, looking at customers. So what have people been telling you about those numbers? What quotes have you had from suppliers? What have you heard other people say that this is what they can realistically trade or sell at for? So draw on all these other sources. Ultimately as well, what a lot of people base it on is a very mystical art called intuition, which is, this kind of feels right to me. This number feels like it's the right number. I'll say, okay, well, intuition, by the way, is not some weird science. Intuition is actually our subconscious. Intuition is our brain saying these are all of the experiences you've had in your life up to this date, which have some relevance on this question, this problem you're trying to solve. And this is what we can learn from it. And your brain's very clever, and it spits out some suggestions, and what we call it intuition. So never be afraid to ignore your intuition or gut instinct, okay? Because there's probably some basis for it you just don't realize what it is. So that's the ways you can come up with some of the numbers. Now, what do you do with those numbers in creating a budget? So as part of this session, we've also created a simple Excel worksheet to help you create a budget and then also manage your cash flow. So what I wanted to do as part of this part of the session here is just to share this with you as we go along. Now, you may find it useful to have a copy of this open in terms of the Excel sheet as you watch the video alongside, or to pause and check in between, that's fine too. But what you'll see when you open that spreadsheet is it comes in two halves. There's a top half and a bottom half. And this first bit here is the top half, where money is coming into the business, and not just where it comes in, but when it comes in. So what we can see is we've set the spreadsheet up by month. So month. You can change that. It's not a password protected workbook. If you want to change it to a week or a day, that's absolutely fine. Okay, you make it work for you as you best need to. This is just the starters for 10 points. And against that, we've got the side of the income, where money is probably going to come in from. And money's probably going to come in from customer sales. We may be fortunate, and you may say, actually, there's a grant that we can apply for as well. So there's a bit of money we can get as a grant. We may be borrowing money. There may be money coming in as a loan from someone. We'll come back to loans a bit later on in this session. Or there may be some other way that money's coming in. And we've left that blank. You can overwrite that as you go through. So when you come to create your budget, in this first column here, the budget for that month or that period, you simply bash in, what do you think the number will be? And that will be a quoted figure. That would be an estimated figure. That's your planned figure, your budget figure. And what it will do, the spreadsheet set up to automatically add it up for you. So as you put the numbers in there, this number at the bottom will get bigger as you go along. Now, you'll notice, of course, as you look at this sheet, that there's a second column next to it in a slightly different color called actual. Now, this is really important because when you create your budget, you're making assumptions. You're saying either this is what happened before, or this is what we think will happen, because we've done research, because we've used intuition. Absolutely fine. Difficulty is, and this is what nobody usually tells you when you're planning any part of a venture or a business, is when you're in this planning stage, this budgeting stage, you become God. You're in a God complex mode. You just don't realize it. Because in this planning stage, in your head, you are determining and controlling how suppliers are going to behave and the costs, the charges they'll make on you. You're controlling how customers are going to act and what they'll pay you. Okay, you're in control of that because it's all up here. When you go out into the world, people are very rude and they don't behave as you thought they would all of the time. And sometimes that's for the better and sometimes not so much. So what we also say within this planning tool is actually when you get to the end of that period, be it a month or a week or a day, put in the actuals. What did you actually take? So you thought you'd take £1,000. Again, put in the figure. It may only have been £800. And again, the column will add it up. So this just allows you to test your workings at your planning as you go along. So you can start to see more quickly, is there a problem? Or actually, am I going to be more quids in than I thought I was? So you can make changes as you go along. You can stay in control of your business. Okay? That's the idea of that. Now, the other bit in terms of this spreadsheet is we have the bottom half of the sheet. This is about the money going out of your business. And yeah, so we've got various lines down the side about things you might be spending money on. You might be spending money on insurance. You might be spending money on some transport costs. You might be spending money on a mobile phone contract. Now, there's also a very strange word in this list called sundry items. Now, if you're working with a bookkeeper or an accountant, they may say, oh, we've set up your accounts to include a sundry column. Now, sundry is the accountants and bookkeepers term for odds and ends. Those funny bits and pieces of costs you incur in your business that do not neatly fit under any of the other pre-assigned headings. Okay, so it's anything that you don't know where to stick it under sundry as a general rule. Okay, as I said it, so we've created a budget in terms of what we've been quoted, what we think will pay out on that month. And again, the spreadsheet will add it up for us. And just as before, in terms of when you've actually done that trading period, check against it. What was it actually? So you can keep a track of this. So, and again, to add it up. Now, the clever part about this spreadsheet is it does more than just add up money in and money out for you. It then says, what's the balance? What does this mean in terms of what you've cleared in that month? So it then says, okay, what was the total money in minus the total money out in that month? So £325 in this current example you'll find on the sheet. Yeah, that's fine. So you know you made £300 this month. £300, that's yours. Do what you want with it. Great. Now, however, what we would also suggest in the spreadsheet is we have this other bit at the bottom called bank, opening bank and closing bank. And this is really important because your business needs cash to survive. As you trade, you incur bills on an ongoing process. And you need to make sure you can always pay those bills. So the question becomes, how much of that £325 should you take out and just go out with and spend and have a nice time? Or spend on scratch cards or buy the next big Lego set? And how much should you keep in the business to help tide you into the next month? So it gives us this idea of the closing bank is the rolling bank balance. How much money do you have in that business account or the notional pot that you're kind of holding the money for your business in at any one time? So at the end of each month, at the end of this first period, we've got £300 in the bank, which means in the next month going forward, the budget is that there'll be £300. So this helps you work out, how am I building money up in the business? If there are big costs coming in, maybe it's better not to take it all out for myself, but to leave it in, let it accumulate, and then I can afford to take it in one hit. I don't have to borrow money. I don't have to pay interest. I don't have to do a payment plan. The helicopter is mine in one fell swoop. Okay, and then similarly, just because we've got the actual column next to it, this will also automatically update as you go along. So you can test your assumptions as you work through. So it's worth having a play with that spreadsheet just to see how it goes. And you may find it useful as well to work with a business advisor as well, or someone else who uses simple bookkeeping system, just to have a kind of a talk it through with them in terms of what you've done and how it's worked out, just to make sure that you're confident you've got it right and it's all worked well together. Okay, so we've created a budget, we've created a forecast, fantastic. So what? What do we do with it now we've got this beautiful spreadsheet of numbers? Well, we've already mentioned this, which is we use it to test, is the world actually working in the way that we thought it would? Are customers spending as much money as we hoped they would? Are the suppliers charging us the prices that they told us they would? Are we making enough money? Okay. We can also do something called flexing. Now, just to reassure you, most people go, oh, flexing, that's about flexing your muscles, right? Usually, yes, but in this instance, when we're talking about budgeting and cash flow forecasting, flexing means playing out different scenarios. So you've created a budget, and you can say, but so what? What if I got a bigger pitch and I paid twice as much money for it? Put that number in and see how it plays out across the spreadsheet. You can say, well, what if I could get a better deal from suppliers so I can reduce my materials cost a little bit? Put that number in the spreadsheet, play it out, see what happens. So it gives you that ability to scenario plan, to test the view of the world that you think and hope is going to happen. So you've got more assurance that whatever happens in terms of best case scenario or worst case scenario, there's still enough money going through, because ultimately this planning tool as well, this idea of budgeting, is really important in helping to make sure that this venture can generate as much money as you need. And the money that you need personally to live on is your affair. It's not mine. It's not your advisors. It's not your bank managers or anyone else. Okay. You know how much you need each week or each month to live. So you need to make sure that when you do this budget, that this business you're setting up has the potential to generate that for you. Okay. Because if it's not, then you need to rework the assumptions in the model, because otherwise you're investing all of your time and energy into setting something up that's going to put you in a worse position than you are now. And that doesn't seem very sensible to me. But you make a choice. And again, even if it looks like it's not going to generate a lot of cash, at least you know that going into it. You can make better informed choices for yourself as well as your business idea. The other things you can do with these beautiful budgets, once you've created them, is impress bank managers, impress people, the program managers of business support teams and such like. Reassure your parents that you're not just going off cockeyed. Okay, so they can be a useful way to build friends and build experiences as well. Okay, so once we've got it out there, so what happens once you started trading? You've done this budget, you've done this cash flow. Now what? Well, I've already said the importance of regularly updating that sheet. When you get to the end of each day or week or month, update that sheet just to see how close you were in how you thought the business would play out to how well it's actually performed in terms of money coming in and money going out. And that puts you in a better position to work out, do I need to panic? If I need to panic, how soon do I need to panic and how much do I need to panic? Okay, in terms of there's a hole appearing in the budget in terms of the money's about to disappear. Well, how much is about to disappear and when? Okay, so remember that a lot of businesses are seasonal. Gift items tend to sell really well in the run up to Christmas, over the summer, because people are going visiting or trying to send gifts to people. Easter's another big one. Florists, for example, big time for the florists is February and Valentine's Day. Massive sales January, February, and then it tends to go quieter in sort of March, April. So your business may be seasonal, and that's going to impact upon how the money comes in and out of your cash flow and out of your budget, and ultimately helping you sustain your business. So if you see these holes starting to appear in terms of, oh, next month we're going to run out of cash at the bank, but the month after there's enough sales to bring it back in. So how do I bridge that period? Well, could you maybe put off spending some costs that you thought about? Talk to your suppliers, have a conversation with them. In my experience of managing all sorts of businesses over the last however many decades now, my experience with suppliers has always been, if you have an open and honest conversation with them, if you explain the reality of things and you can show them your workings out, which is why this is a temporary blip and all the money's about to come in, you just need a bit more time. Most of the time, but actually every time that I've done it, they've said, okay, have another week, 2 weeks, another month to pay the bill off, no extra cost, because you've been upfront with them and they respect that. You build a stronger relationship. It may also be that you can find other ways to bring money into your business. We mentioned, that sheet that we've created. There's a line that says grants. From time to time, there are grant programs available. Inevitably, they never offer as much money as we would like. Inevitably, the criteria that we have to meet is always more stringent than we would like, but it's always worth checking. And some of those grants are not just for the businesses, they're for us as individuals. So never be afraid to kind of say, well, okay, well, maybe there's an option that I could apply for universal credit, say, and that will help keep me ticking over while my business, my market stall, the online shop, generates enough sales to start to support me in turn. Okay, so lots of options there. Said we'd talk about borrowing. Ultimately, you can borrow money against your business and the costs. I personally, because of how I was brought up and how I've seen other businesses start up and grow, would always counsel you to say borrowing is a last resort. Because if you borrow money, you have to pay it back, and it will always cost you more to pay back than you borrowed. And it's a distraction. So if you can avoid it in any way by putting off bills, by pulling in more money from elsewhere in terms of grants or personal support from yourself, take those where you can, because those give you more control. If you're borrowing from someone else, you're handing over part control of your business to someone else. You're jumping through to their tune, not your own. But in some instances, it can be a useful fix. It can be a short-term bridge, and it just gets you over a few weeks or a few months where cash is really tight because it's a seasonal business. And you know you need to build up stock or marketing or advertising. You need to invest in that because at the end of that period, all of the sales come in and you need a way to pay for that first. Okay, so just because I said I'd prefer personally, and I know lots of other people try and avoid it, it may be the right option for you. But again, check the clauses, work it through carefully. Finally, pulling all this together, budgeting and cash flow hopefully made a strong case throughout this session as to why you need to take this seriously, why it's worth spending some time now working out the costs, putting them into a kind of a projection as to what might happen in the next week, month, quarter, year. But just to balance that out, your cash flow and your budget isn't everything. Okay? It's important in helping you stay solvent. It helps you make sure you can keep the bills paid. Cash is king. If you don't have cash, everything stops. But it doesn't help you properly understand how profitable you are. Because the way that accounts and businesses and that trading and finance works within businesses in the UK, we have certain conventions about how profits are declared and treated and identified. And just because you've got cash does not automatically mean that you've made profit. So in one of the next sessions as part of this series, we'll actually look at this idea of how do you separate out your cash from your profit in helping you make those bigger decisions about you've done a bit of trading, is this worth carrying on? Which bit of it worked really well in terms of building it forward? But cash flow and budgeting, really important. Helps you keeps the light on, helps you keep the bills paid, helps keep you going, to keep things going. So thanks for listening. I've been Adrian Ashton, and hopefully there's been something useful tools here to help you in your journey as an entrepreneur and a business startup into the future.